Nithyanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraitam Sadgurum Cham Namami. Nithyanandam. So I just wanted to share a little bit about the Sanskrit as a science of sound. So basically, as Hindus, which means we're living the Shastra Pramana. Shastra Pramana means the experience of truth from the Shastras, the scriptures, which in our case will be Vedas and Upanishads. So this coming from the Vedic science, or the group of traditions that we call as Hindu traditions. So the scriptures in the language of Sanskrit. And so what is the importance and the need of Sanskrit? So, like simply, if we think about sound and the experience of sound, even just through listening, we can see that different sounds carry different meanings. So whether you hear the alarm or the siren of a ambulance or a police car, we can see that it evokes a certain response in us. If we hear the growling of a bear, or that kind of powerless meowing of a kitten, the roar of a lion, or the cry of a baby, or the shouting of a human, we can feel the different energies that come, the different meanings that come in those different sounds. So we can see quite clearly that different sounds have different meaning. So if we had the clarity to see the meaning that sound has, so if we can see as the sound enters into our system and touches our being, we could say Ananda Ganda, the place where our physical being meets the cosmic consciousness. If we were able to see that clearly, if we could experience sound coming in clearly into our system and touching the source of consciousness, what is the meaning of that sound? Then we could start to decode the meaning of sound. We could start to catalog it as having different meanings, and then combining different sounds, combining different meanings to make compound meanings, and create a language based in the meaning of sound. So it wouldn't be a created language that's arbitrarily created, but it could be a decoded or a discovered language, meaning that sound has its own meaning. And if we discover and decode the meaning in sound and use that to reproduce the experiences in ourselves and others, this is what Sanskrit language is. So the experience of fear can be created in us by certain sounds. The experience of even anxiety or peacefulness or listening or powerfulness can be recreated through certain sounds. So this is what is the Sanskrit language. This is what the Shastras are, the scriptures from Vedas and Upanishads. A certain combination of sounds that give a certain conscious experience. When combined and that sound is recreated and chanted, creates that conscious experience in us. So this is the Sanskrit language, the deep, truthful science of sound, used as a science to recreate conscious experience in others. And within that, the conscious experience is encoded, and the life of powerful living, by experiencing the powers of consciousness, the Shaktis that express from the space of oneness, the spiritual powers that express from the experience of oneness, the experience of our source of consciousness. So our experience, our witnessing of life comes from our ability to witness, our ability to experience. Our ability to experience is embedded in our deepest, untouchable, unchangeable nature as a conscious being. Consciousness means the ability to experience. I am a conscious being, it means I have the ability to experience. So I have the ability to experience all things happening in life and to allow those things as my experience to express through me. So through the Sanskrit mantras, I have the possibility to recreate the experience, meaning the expression of all things that can be perceived through me. I have the ability to express those. So all the powers of existence can express through me when I'm open to the possibility, and that experience is recreated and channeled through me. So this is kind of the science that is that requires the existence of living incarnation to be able to effortlessly give that experience to us. See, whether someone can express some powers but does not know the nature or the process of it, or whether they're able to give through some techniques is different, but the ability to give that experience to all beings effortlessly and immediately from the truth of the original scriptures, verified by the lineage of enlightened masters, verified by that being's own experience, and able to reproduce that as an experience in us, is the only safe way of giving the experience and expression of the spiritual powers. Otherwise, everything is accidental. So this is the danger of getting Kundalini awakening or spiritual experience or spiritual powers from a source that is not verified by the original scriptures, which are giving the experience through Sanskrit of those powers, verified by enlightened masters and by the person who is giving that power, the ability to reproduce in all conscious beings. If we don't have these four things, then it's largely accidental, and we don't know what the accident may happen in us or what the impact may be. So it's important that whatever experience we're getting through yoga or otherwise, that person is able to reference the original scriptures saying that this is a spiritual science of enlightenment that's verified by other enlightened masters, as well as their own experience and the safe way of reproducing the experience in us. So Sanskrit by its nature necessarily carries the power of sound and the ability to reproduce that vibration in us, to have all the cells in our body vibrate at that resonant frequency of enlightenment. So this is the goal, basically, is it's a possibility for us to experience and express all the possibilities of consciousness because we are consciousness. But we need our muscle memory and biomemory to resonate at that frequency, at that highest frequency, to able to constantly express and experience those powers. So this is basically the goal of the life, is to have this physical and this mental emotional body, have it aligned to the truth, the deepest and highest truth of us as a conscious being that is expressing those powers. So this is the gift of Swamiji coming in physical form, because when our physical form comes into contact with his physical form, or in this case, the unique contribution of the Hindu tradition is the ability to take that enlightened consciousness and put it into a matter, into a physical form, so that we can come into contact with that physical form and receive physically physical information and physical uplifting and physical initiation from the cells in this murti of Swamiji that transmits that high frequency as an energy battery and a conscious expression of him, as Swamiji has imbued his own conscious expression to be able to radiate through the metal deity that is an energy stronghold and radiant battery. Swamiji imbues his own conscious energy as radiating through this murti that then enters the cells of my body and gives the frequency update and the conscious initiation experience of my cells to raise my cells to the higher level. So this is the unique contribution of the Hindu tradition, the science of taking the cosmic formless consciousness, putting it into form so that our physical form can come into contact with that and receive the initiation, the ability to express the spiritual shaktis, the powers expressing from that space of oneness and consciousness, initiating our physical body, our cells, to be able to immediately and our brain cells to be able to immediately express those conscious powers. It's the unique contribution of the Hindu tradition, knowing how to take the formless, put it into form, so that your form can receive the initiation and be able to immediately manifest more of the powers, the purpose of our life, the highest purpose of our life, expressing the Shaktis, the spiritual powers, from the space of oneness, verified by the original scriptures, the lineage of enlightened masters, and the living incarnation himself, as an experience reproducible in us without limitation, is the only safe way of manifesting the spiritual powers, the Shaktis. So this whole science is given through the verifiable experience of sound. So it's not something that has to be accepted. If we see clearly what experience is reproduced through sound, then we can see that certain mantras give a certain conscious experience, especially and only when verified through the original scriptures, the enlightened masters' verification, the living incarnation's experience, and the reproduction in us by these four pramanas, verifiable experiences of truth. Then we know that we're getting the verifiable by us experience and expression of the science of sound and the powers of sound and the powers of consciousness. So it's not something accidental that may or may not happen, but it's something that is hidden and shared through the experience of Sanskrit and by the enlightened being who's able to decode and share and reproduce that in us. So this is kind of the unique contribution of Swamiji as coming in the physical form is, see, the science is there in the Shastras, in the scriptures, and the science is there as verified by previous enlightened masters. But to bring it to life and make it as a Shakshi Pramana, experience in us of truth, it requires his presence, his physical presence. Because our body is so contaminated by the plastics that we eat and the pesticides that we eat and the air that we breathe and the ideas that pollute our consciousness, that to even orient our cells in our brain and our body to be able to manifest the highest possibilities of consciousness takes many years, let alone not knowing about the science or how to reproduce it. It takes many thousands of lifetimes for us to try to get to that space, let alone maintain it. So Swamiji, as an incarnation, as per Hinduism, immediately makes it as an expression in us, where we don't have to do anything except remember and use the possibility to continuously realign our muscle memory and biomemory to express the powers that are made as available to us by the living incarnation himself. So this is my understanding of the power and nature of Sanskrit as a science of sound, as a verifiable, reproducible manifestation of the powers of consciousness, necessarily gifted by the physical presence of an incarnation as per Hinduism, and the possibility of expressing the highest possibility of our life as a conscious being. So I just want to close this session by thanking Swamiji for the opportunity, and we'll close with the Purna Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Sadguru Parakar Purnamastu. Om Nithyanandam. Nithyanandam.